Welcome into episode 415 of the Skate Podcast. I'm Bridget Prue here with Scott McLaughlin. Brian, not here. We're recording at a weird time, so he can't make it. We're recording at night.
Xerxes is here, though.
Xerxes is here, if you didn't already see him. He's going to help me because I'm sick, so he might take over for a little bit here. If you can't already tell. I've been on the struggle bus with this for the past few days, and today has been the worst. But anyway.
Next man up, Xerxes.
Next man up. He's here, and he's probably going to bite me. But, all right. So we're recording right after the Bruins lost to Ottawa, and they're not going to go undefeated since the trade deadline. So there's that. I'm going to need you to take over.
Yeah, I'll go right into my opening shift because it's about the Bruins' first period Thursday, which was not nearly good enough, and Jeremy Swayman in net was not nearly good enough. Nikita Zadorov, during his pregame interview with Nesson that he did on the bench during warmups, called this the biggest game of the season, and he's not wrong, right? Like, Bruins suddenly find themselves right back in the middle of this playoff race after two big wins over Tampa and Florida. Ottawa is one of the teams that they're chasing, although really they're more chasing Columbus, who's in the second wildcard spot, but Ottawa's right there, a few points ahead. And the Bruins basically no-showed that first period. They get outshot 15-4, and Swayman gives up, a couple goals that you just need saves on. Starting right off the top, less than 4 minutes into the game, Shane Pinto just turns around, fires a shot from the right circle. No screen, just beats Swayman under the glove, not even over. Second goal is an absolute rocket of a slap shot, but it's also unscreened and from the top of the circle. Third one, I don't know if Swayman's stopping it no matter what, but he really gets stuck in place in his crease and barely even makes an attempt to get across on a pass from Brady Tkachuk to Drake Batherson on the power play. And then the fourth one, he misplays the puck behind the net, turnover, point shot, juicy rebound. Ridley Gregg buries the rebound 4-1. And there's plenty of fault elsewhere on those goals as well. Like, Andrew Peeke had a bad icing on one. Parker Wotherspoon had a couple misplays leading up to one. Elias Lindholm couldn't get a clear on the penalty kill on that power play goal. So it's not all on him. And again, outshot 15-4. So they really didn't have anything going. But you did need more from him. And I won't share them right now at the top, but I've got some stats on something that we've kind of followed on and off throughout the year, which is how Jeremy Swayman plays when he gets a third or fourth or fifth straight start, because it continues to be not very well. It continues to be a problem all season long.
Yeah, no, it's true. We can talk about goaltending in general in that game because Ullmark made one of the best saves I've seen all year.
Yeah.
And despite it being a high-scoring game, and I'll keep this to just Korpisalo and Ullmark, some of the best saves we've seen the whole season. So there was some really, really good goaltending. Swayman doesn't fall under that category, though, because Korpisalo comes in after the first 20 minutes and plays the rest of the game and gives up one goal, and then there's an empty net or two. So, but we'll get back to that. My opening shift has to do with the new guys again, because there's more contributions. Casey Middlestat scores to keep the game close early on because Ottawa scores the first two goals. Middlestat scores his first goal as a Bruin and makes it 2-1. I thought he's been helpful to the offense in just how it flows. It's kind of funny how you watch new guys come together and there's just kind of like to use a French term, pardon me for doing this, but a je ne sais quoi, why it works. We're not really sure exactly, but it does work. And Middlestat just kind of brings this different flow. And I'll say it 5-on-5. But I also think on the power play, it's pretty evident when he's playing with the Bruins better players that you see this different element to the power play. And Kuznetsov, or as Brian called him, Kuznetsov, scores as well. And this is just a
They called him Kasi.
yeah, whatever. I mean, his first name starts, or his last, should say his last name starts with like pronounced who. So I feel like that also could be, it's kind of funny because we're like, who? How do we say this person's name? But he makes a really strong move to the net, got hooked or slashed. It was going to be a penalty, but he finishes really confidently. And I've liked how he's contributed as well since coming over. So, and he gets a little bit of power play time too. So these are guys that I think that just the movement overall on the power play has looked better since the trade deadline and adding these new guys. And I couldn't tell you why. I don't know if they could tell you why. Maybe they just simplified and the memo is just move and keep the play moving.
Yeah, I think Middlestad's brought, an aggressive approach on the power play. Like the Bruins didn't score on their power play tonight, but he helped create a couple chances. He took a puck right to the net aggressively. That created like some chaos in the crease, and the puck just stayed out. But yeah, I think he's been aggressive. Is like the word I would keep coming back to. Like he gets the puck and he attacks. And I said in the last pod, it's like I don't want to like bury Brad Marchand when he's gone, but like there were too many times on the power play this season where he would get the puck and just hold. And I think you see Middlestad like already knows what he's going to do with the puck when he gets it. And it's like either take it to the net or he knows the next passing option. And it's moving faster. And Bruins in general this past week have played faster. Now, again, not so much in the first period tonight because the first period was a disaster, really all over the ice. But even still, you do see Middlestad get that goal. And yeah, I like the way Kuznetsov's played. He's been like pretty relentless, hounding pucks. And then he's had look, I didn't know a whole heck of a lot about his game, but when you look at like his point totals in Minnesota, which are almost non-existent, and you see the way that they were using him in like a fourth line, really defensive checking role, like getting a lot of D zone starts. You see him make some plays with the puck and like hold on to the puck and look pretty confident with it on his stick. And then you see a finish like the one he had tonight, and you're like, why wasn't he being used in more offensive situations? Like, why was he being used like a Johnny Beecher, basically? I'm like, that's not who he is. Like, he's clearly got more skill than that. So,
or why can't Johnny Beecher finish like that?
Well, yeah, I mean that's a whole other issue that I don't know if we're ever going to see, but yeah, I mean, if the Bruins can unlock some offense with Kuznetsov and like he can, thrive or at least start to break through when he's not getting buried in a defensive role, then that trade could pretty quickly start to look like a steal. Because also, like, by the way, Justin Brazeau hasn't exactly started to pick it up in Minnesota. He's played 3 games there. One of them he played 4 minutes, so they're not exactly throwing a ton of ice time his way.
Yeah, that trade I don't understand from their point of view. Do you get that one?
I mean, clearly they wanted to get bigger. I think they were looking for like that net front kind of presence. And also I think they knew that they were probably misusing Kuznetsov. And we're like, well, we're misusing him because the role he should be playing isn't open. And so let's go get someone who like fits a fourth line role better. I think is probably what they thought.
Maybe they just kind of misjudged Brazeau.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe.
But Kuznetsov has a good opportunity here because there's spots that are wide open. I mean, look at the second line. It has Jacob Lauko on it. And he is also on it. So like,
I don't even know, like, it's hard to even tell which one is like the second line, honestly. Like it's, if we're even being generous, it's like 2 third lines.
yes.
But I mean, they're getting like similar ice time. So, whether it's the Lindholm line or the Middlestad line,
Yeah.
Certainly both have had some pretty good moments.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point to make because I think Middlestat really doesn't feel like a third line guy right now, just with what he's been doing. Whereas maybe Lindholm feels more like that over the course of the season. But anyway, I really do think that those two in particular, and Lauko's forecheck is one of those things that like you it impacts the game without it impacting like his stat line, but it impacts other people's stat lines and goals and like he'll forecheck and like not touch the puck, but like he'll like lift a stick and it comes loose and then somebody's got it and they're scoring. And I did also go ahead.
Lauko also had a couple big shot blocks in this
Yeah.
game. Was
The only one
banged
that
up
I
a couple
like,
times. One time
he
he was
left.
shaking it. He was shaking his hand. The other time he was kind of limping off. He took a shot off the ankle. I tweeted out the Happy Gilmore at the batting cage gif, like just standing there.
It's GIF, Scott.
GIF. Gala.
Gala. It's GIF.
J-Lo.
All right. We're we're gonna have more comments about this. It's GIF. But so yeah, he left the game and came back because he was a little bit banged up. But what I really like about him, and this is something he did in the first go around too, but you feel that it's like this renewed energy with him that he fights every shift. Like he knows he's has to do that to have a job. And he does it better than a lot of guys. So in my opinion, that's something the Bruins were lacking before the trade deadline was somebody that was going to go out there and be consistent in that role and bring a little flair. He's got a little personality, and getting him back was good. It's funny because they traded him at the draft, and I think he's a guy that we all thought was a pretty good fit in Boston the first time. Sorry if my camera's moving. My cat is rubbing his head on it. So
Xerxes was getting dangerously close to a high stick with the tail there.
Yeah, this is just what he does. But yeah, Lauko has been good. Now, is he a second liner on a team that's making the playoffs? No, and that's what's difficult about today's game or today's loss is that after those first two games, like belief came back. Like there was some real like believability that there was maybe going to be a push. And now could there still be? Yes, but this was one that hurt because Ottawa is a team they're fighting for that same spot with. And a team that wanted it a little bit more from the beginning of the game. The pushback was good at the end, but it wasn't a full 60-minute effort. Really, it was the last 30 minutes that the Bruins looked like they really wanted it more. But unfortunately, the Bruins, they probably should have seen it coming that Linus Ullmark wasn't going to let that happen. And because he used to do that when he was in Boston. And he's one of the main reasons why it wasn't at least 5-4 with that Lohrei shot. And then Zadorov hit a post too, which obviously is not a save, but it could have been 5-5. It felt like, I believe it was late in the second period. It could have been 5-5.
Yeah, and that was Husnudinov again setting up that chance for Lohrei with a nice seam pass, good vision to see Lohrei cutting down, and yeah, just an insane diving save by Ullmark, who has had a bit of an inconsistent season of his own and has dealt with a couple injuries, but has really picked it up. And I meant to look up what his final numbers were the other day, but he went like full sicko mode over the weekend. I think he had, yeah, he had, so he finished, 2-1 win over Detroit. He finished with 48 saves on 49 shots. Through two periods, he had 35 saves on 35 shots. And now he follows that up with, I would maybe stop short of calling this a great outing against the Bruins because he just wasn't tested a ton. Like in the second period, yes, but he also gave a couple goals in that period. In the third period, that felt to me like a period where the Bruins had possession, but like they weren't really translating it to great chances to try to get it closer than 2 goals. Like I don't think they threatened a whole heck of a lot in that third period.
Yeah.
A couple times, yes, but not enough for a team that really needed to be like completely desperate in that situation. Um, but yeah, like it's in some ways this was more of a test because you're going against a team that is also desperate for every point. Like Florida and Tampa, they know they're in the playoffs. They can afford a couple off nights down the stretch, and they're going to be safe. Like Ottawa still, it certainly isn't secure. They have a little bit. They've put a few points between themselves and the bubble, but that can change with a 2-game losing streak. So they're still fighting. They've been hot. I think this is 5 wins in a row for them. So you knew like this was going to be a test, and you just wonder like if the Bruins get off to a better start, is it a closer game? Because you said like it could have been 5-5 if not for Ullmark. Well, it also could have been 3-3 if you got better goaltending on your side from
Yeah.
Swayman.
Yeah. Definitely. I thought their best push was at the end of the second period. There was a chance that Middlestat had behind Ullmark. The puck was behind Ullmark. There was that chance by Lori, who I think had 2 really good scoring opportunities in the game in the second half of the game. And then there's a door off the post, but that push came in at the end of the second period. The urgency was still there in the third, but not quite as much. And I think we can transition to the goalie talk because you brought it up about, this doesn't have to be a game where there's, so many goals scored, especially the ones that Swayman gave up, 4 goals in the first 20 minutes. And yeah, it's just one of those games where, and after the game, Joe Sacco said, he wasn't blaming Swayman. He said there was a bad effort in front of him too, which he's not wrong. The shots were 22-7 at one point, a little over halfway through the second period. So obviously the goalies were getting tested for the Bruins. And that's not all on Swayman, but take us through what you wrote about.
Yeah, so I'll just throw these numbers out. So on the season now, Jeremy Swayman in first or second straight start. So either first game after Korpisalo gets a start or the second one after that.
By the way, I think was this Ullmark's like 8th straight start or something like that. He had been
it?
he had started a lot of games in the past stretch. So.
I thought
was it maybe 7?
I thought he got one off because
yeah, the one where they called someone else up. I think it was maybe 7 of 8 or 8 of 9 games in the past stretch.
Yeah. So first or second straight start, Swayman this season is 17, 14, and 3 with a 910 save percentage. Third or more consecutive starts, so third, fourth, fifth straight start. I don't think he started more than 5 at any point. He is now 3, 8, and 3 with an 869 save percentage. So it's been an ongoing issue, and it's like that. There's so many ways to go off this because one is like, first off, obviously you just need him to be able to handle this kind of workload. Like that's what he's getting paid to do now. You're gonna have to start 3, 4, 5 straight games sometimes, and you're gonna have to perform well. So one is like, all right, he needs to figure out how to get better at that this offseason, and certainly having a regular offseason with a regular training camp and a regular preseason should help. Like, I do think this might be an area where missing camp and missing preseason games, I think this is an area where you see it show up because it's like he's, the season where he's going to get the biggest workload of his life, he missed a month of critical prep time to get ready for that season. And like, that's just not ideal. And I think that shows up.
It's crazy that it's still a thing and we're after the trade deadline. That it still like hasn't been corrected.
Well, but you also got to remember, like, now he's at the point where he's at his career high in starts. So it's like, now he has gone past where he's ever gone before. So, you know, yeah, like early in the season, it might have been like the actual starting 3 or 4 straight that he wasn't used to. Now I think you're also getting to a point where he's just not used to playing this many games, period. So that can also be creeping in at this point. And the other discussion point off of it is like, I know we both made the case early in the season for mixing Corpusalo in more.
Mhm.
Now, I get why it's tough for them to do that now, because you think like, well, if we're in a playoff race and we're trying to go for it, you have to kind of just ride your number one guy, like Ottawa's doing with Ullmark. You just mentioned how many starts in a row he had gotten recently. Like, that's what your instinct tells you to do. But if Swayman's not up to the task, then are you like actually hurting the team if you keep rolling him out so much?
And I got a few texts tonight that said they kept the wrong goalie. That said, well, this is why Allmark was the Vesna guy and the lead in the tandem. And he certainly seems to have the ability for those much
It,
more athletic looking saves and game stealing performances than Swayman has had.
okay, here's what I'm going to say to those people. Blanket response to anyone saying that. Show me the proof that you were saying that last April and May
And they're not.
after Swayman ran with the starting job and was not just the best goalie in the Stanley Cup playoffs, the best player through 2 rounds of the Stanley Cup playoffs. If you were saying then that they should keep Ullmark over Swayman, you get to say it now. Congratulations, you were the only person saying it. Otherwise, shut up. Like,
Yeah, it's
garbage
revisionist.
take. Like, bad,
It's revisionist, right?
bad behavior.
It's like we see the result, so we pretend like that was the original take, but no, Swayman was universally liked and agreed upon to be the guy of the future. And then things went south in negotiations and in training camp and or lack thereof, and it it's become its own narrative and storyline. And when you see them go against each other in Ottawa, that's why the question pops into people's mind. Um, and it's unfortunate that the workload based on the numbers does seem to be affecting how well Swimmen's been able to play. And we talked about this 2 weeks ago on Sunday Skate with Razor, and he said, he said he would put Corpusalo in more often. You don't necessarily need to have Swayman getting all these starts in a row. You can expect that for him in the playoffs. Like, you're going to ride him in the playoffs if you make the playoffs. That's the caveat. But like, you don't necessarily have to do that leading up, because this is kind of a transitional season for him where he's still kind of figuring out how to be the starting guy and get up to speed with that workload. So yeah, I think it has made sense. I wrote an article about the numbers in the first half of the season that were similar on like the third, fourth, fifth starts, like the diminishing returns, and it has continued to be something to look at it, and sometimes the numbers are pretty stark, the difference.
Yeah, like there was one stretch, and
The worst was
I
the
stupidly
Winnipeg.
closed out the list of all his games, but
Well,
there
the
was
worst
one.
one was the Winnipeg one.
Well, yeah, I mean the Dallas one too, where he gave up 7. That was a third straight start. But there was one stretch in January where it looked like he had figured it out. So when the back-to-back wins over Florida and Tampa in January, where he stops 40 of 43 in a win over the Panthers, and then 43 out of 45 in a win over the Lightning. That was a third and fourth straight start. So like that was the point, and that was when he was playing his best hockey this season in general. Was that month coming out of Christmas. So I think I even wrote about it at the time, like that was crucial because not only was it two big wins, but it also seemed like a breakthrough in him being able to get these consecutive starts. But then it's kind of gone the other way again since. So yeah, it's just it's something that like it's gonna have to be better. And with Corpusalo too, it's also like you're paying him $3 million, which is a real salary. Like that's a real player. This isn't a league minimum kid where you're like, yeah, well, whatever. Like, of course we're not gonna play him more. Like, I don't know. You took him on in the trade, and we would hear from people like Razor that like, well, you need a professional backup. Like, you need someone with NHL experience. You need a real goalie. You can't just rely on a kid like Bussy or DiPietro. And it's like, well, I don't know. Couldn't like a $775,000 guy handle one start every 2 to 3 weeks, which is what Corpusalo's getting? Like, he's not a $3 million player if he's starting 1 out of every 4 to 5 games. Like,
Yeah, and not because he's played bad, because he hasn't, but because of the role that you're putting him in.
Too, but
What'd you say?
I said he's had his ups and downs too. Like he's had some bad starts.
Yeah, but I'm saying like it's the main reason you say that is because he's not being used enough for that to be the contract. Like that's a big part of it. And maybe that was a bad contract that was taken on in the off season. But it was done in order to get that first round pick that turned into
Right.
Dean Letourneau. So anyway, remains to be seen. That's kind of one of those ones that's still playing out. But I actually really don't have a whole lot left to say about the game. But there was one funny
just
thing.
one other point I was going to make on Swayman is, so like getting back to the contract and this debate over like whether they made a mistake keeping him instead or signing him to this deal. I still think like you need to see next season. Like I still want to see, because despite my
You got 8 seasons, so
what's that?
I said, well, you got more than just next season. You got
where I was going was like, as critical as I'm being here and as I wrote on my column that's up on weei.com late Thursday night, Friday morning. I do actually think Jeremy Swayman's a good goalie, like, because we've seen it before. I've seen him be a really good goalie in the NHL. And I think he's going to have a bounce back season next year because I do believe that just having a regular offseason training camp and preseason matters. And I think that's going to make a difference for him. Now, so like, I'm not panicking too much about the contract just yet. I will say, like, if he has that normal offseason and preseason and then plays like this again next year, yes, then we can all collectively panic, because that is when you start to enter like true disaster territory.
Yeah, agreed. Maybe just an off-season reset for a lot of the guys, right? Like Elias Lindholm is somebody that maybe just needs the off-season reset too.
Yeah.
And then obviously some guys will be healthy again next season, hopefully. So that will affect the defense, and yeah, we'll see what moves they make in the off-season as well, because theoretically they should have the ability to add with the cap going up. And it seems like that's the next shoe to drop in all of these guys moving out at the trade deadline is obviously top 6 forward group is not going to look like this at the start of next season. So anyway, that is all I really had to say about the game, but I wanted to bring this up before we sign off, and this will be shorter because I don't feel great. And it's a little bit late. So the Marchandy commercial. What?
Tremendous timing.
The timing could not have been worse. And what I'm talking about is a Sam Adams commercial that was like a collaboration beer for the so a shandy normally comes out in the summer. If you're not a beer person, it's like the mixture of like a beer and a hard lemonade. And or sometimes it's literally just a hard lemonade, but normally there's a little beer taste to it as well. And I'm personally not a fan. I'll just say that to start of a shandy. Don't like them.
I'm not like a huge fan, but I'll mix a couple in throughout the summer.
No, not worth the calories, not worth the carbs. It's just no.
I
I'm
mean
going for it.
the go-to is the no free advertisement, but the Narragansett Del Shandy. That's I can have a few of those.
That's a good New England plug. We'll give you that one because that was local. But anyway, not to dig a hole for the Marchandy, but it's got his face on it. The commercial is funny. I think all the Your Cousin from Boston commercials are funny. And this one, like he's like screaming at the ingredients and the beer cans, and then he's like Marchand, and he's like, it's Marchand. And I'm like, it like is like that's one that has changed multiple times, but I mean the French way and the right way is Marchand. But the timing was terrible. Just and I'm pretty sure I saw someone tweet out a beer you can cry into because people are still upset about him going. So I forget if it was DJ or somebody tweeted that and I saw it. And it's just a real bummer and shows that the the intention on everybody's side with that was that he was going to be here. You know, poor timing and poor Sam Adams for it'll still sell. I mean, people still like Brad Marchand. And if you like a shandy, go for it. But I'm more likely to drink it if you get an IPA with someone on it.
But which Bruin do you think is most into craft beers? Like who's the biggest beer snob on the team?
Man, I don't think they drink a lot of beer because they are very healthy.
Yeah,
Um,
like I was thinking, like I don't know if any of them are actually like beer snob, like
maybe we should
because
start
they honestly probably just drink like Bud Lights. So like if they do drink,
like well, we're going. I think we're
I
probably
mean we know Pasternak like he's not an IPA
it's
guy,
a Czech
but
craft beer.
he's particular about his Czech beer.
And there is a Czech brewery right near the ring or the practice rink. It's right near Warrior. You and I have been, um, which makes like European style and Czech style beers. But yeah, I don't know. But Pasta might be a good guess because he seems like more of a party or free spirit kind of guy.
Yeah. By the way, it's a tough night for the Marchand was clearly the problem crowd. You know, just pretty big step back for the post deadline good vibes. Um it's funny, like that has kind of become I get it. It's like it's kind of the lowest hanging fruit in terms of sports radio topics. But I heard Mike Milbury on the Great Kill Show like push back against it this morning. He called that whole notion bull crap. Um, and you know, it's like sometimes it's just like it's not that the guy traded away was the problem. It's that it wakes the team up. Like it just shocks everyone into picking it up because you're like, holy crap! Like look who just got traded away. And sometimes it just gives guys a bump. And like again, this was always the thing. It was like, how long is that going to last? You know, now we'll see. Like one bad night and really just one awful period doesn't completely kill their momentum. Like they can bounce back. Now they have a tough opponent to do it against. Saturday night, Tampa Bay comes to the Garden. And again, even though they're pretty secure in a playoff spot, I'm sure they want revenge for last Saturday. Like they're probably not thrilled about getting shut out for nothing by this roster that still looks like a mostly AHL roster. So if I had to guess, I think you're going to get a pretty good effort from Tampa in that game. So not the easiest, next opponent to have to try to bounce back against, but we'll see. Like, there's going to be a lot of tests for this team, especially over the next week plus. Then they go out on the road. You get Vegas and the Kings. Those are big games. If they can get through kind of that stretch, like through this upcoming West Coast trip, and they're in pretty good shape, then I think like we have a real conversation, because their last 10 games are not that bad schedule wise. Now, like, we know this team can have a bad night against anyone. So that might not matter. But in terms of like, if they're actually in a playoff race, that, like, I think we can start to get a little excited if they get a couple more big wins here, whether it's Tampa, Vegas, LA, like, if they can start to build some momentum through this upcoming trip.
Yeah. Yeah. And that makes our lives more interesting, right? And,
Just make that game in Montreal on April 3rd matter.
That's what I was just about to say,
Yeah.
because we're doing another road trip and hitting some craft breweries again. Yes?
Yeah.
We'll see which one of the Bruins wants to come with us. They'll road trip with us, meet them, meet the rest of the team up there.
Yeah, I'm not bringing any beer into Canada though. Like, the whole border situation.
Yeah.
No, can't take any chances.
We didn't do that last time either.
No, you're right. Definitely not.
No. Well, anyway, I think that's gonna wrap it up here, because we're tired. I still have two more broadcasts I gotta get ready for tomorrow, and also gonna plug my alma mater versus your alma mater in the quarterfinals on Saturday. 4:30 puck drop, UMass at BU men, and I'll be broadcasting that game. I'll be on color, so should be a good one. I'm excited for that one.
You're not allowed to cheer.
I know I'm not going to cheer. I'm professional.
Okay.
I'm paid by the conference.
I'm gonna stand outside the box and heckle you.
Watch it, because I do throw. Okay. You're not allowed to go.
I will be at the Bruins game instead. But yeah, we should also plug Sunday skate. 9 a.m.
Yep, 9 a.m. All right. Looks like we got all our plugs in. So there we go. We're out of time, and we'll have Brian back next episode too. So if you missed him and his analysis, don't worry, he'll be back.
I know he likes Husnudinov, so we can. I don't know what other takes he would have had off this game, but I saw him tweeting about Husnudinov. So
yes,
one of many people being won over by him. By the way, on Husnudinov, one last thing I'll mention: so after tonight, he is waivers exempt for 3 more games. If he plays a 4th game, he would then require waivers to be sent to Providence. So something to keep an eye on. Certainly, he's so far playing well enough to stay up. But if there's a situation where it's like they want him in Providence for the AHL playoffs or something, or, whatever, just something to watch.
Yeah. I mean, I personally think he should stay. So
yeah, I would just keep him here.
And also, they need to ice an entire roster, so that's also something. And they, whether they call up Matt Potter again remains to be seen too. So, anyway, I want to thank you guys all for listening, and have a good weekend. And hopefully, we're back to 100% by next skate pod. So, good night, guys. Or actually, this is dropping in the day, so enjoy during the day.
Bridget might also be going to sleep during the day. So
yeah, I took 2 naps today. I really did. I took 2 naps today. And watch This Week in Hockey East if you want to see something. You want to see me like falling apart live. I'm fake smiling through literally my eyes, like crying because I was trying to hold in a cough. So really good episode coming Friday, 6:30. Watch it. All right. Bye.
Hey guys, thanks for watching this Skate Podcast. If you want to see more of our videos, visit our playlist.
Not in front of a screen. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Don't forget to follow us on social media. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment.